fall planting, late summer harvests, gardening tips and tricks, and a whole lot more coming up in today's episode. So let's begin with the things to do this month. You can use coco coir, which is a much better alternative than peat moss, to prepare your potting mix for all your containers this fall. You can see that we are using this coco coir brick that we put in a tub, and then we are adding some water so that it absorbs all the water, and then it turns into this really beautiful looking potting media that you can use to plant a lot of different plants in your garden. And to use coco coir, we mix in equal parts of coco coir, compost and perlite. I'm also throwing in some rock dust here for some added minerals. And you get this really good potting mix that you see here. It's really light, it's really nice in texture. And this will allow all your plant roots to grow really well. And you should never overthink your potting mix. This is all you need to create a very good quality potting mix for growing most kind of plants. Let's now look at fall planting. Fall is a great time to grow cool season crops like onions, beets, spinach, and a lot of other plants. When you get plants from your nursery or your garden center, here is a little trick. You can separate the plants by just running water onto the roots. Here we are separating these onion bulbs as you see here. But you can do this with most plants you buy at your nursery or your garden store to get way more plants than you paid for. You can see all these beautiful onion seedlings. They've grown really well. And it's now time to plant them. And we will be planting them in our green stalk planter. We chose our green stalk leaf planter to plant all these onions and beets. And they do a really good job growing in the green stalk vertical planter. And we will plant a few and show you how we are doing this. So we are planting our onions first. We already enriched our potting mix with some organic fertilizer and worm castings. And now we are planting all our onions. And the green stalk vertical planter is a great way to grow onions. I usually don't have a lot of space in my garden to grow onions, but the green stalk planter lets me grow up to 42 onions in just one planter. And after planting, you can see the plants have all settled down now in a few days, and they're looking amazing. And these are great cool season crops to grow. Saving seeds. This is another activity you should do in the fall season. Once your summer crops have grown, you should be able to harvest all the seeds from the fruits or vegetables that are remaining on the plant. Here you can see some snake gourd seeds that we are harvesting and saving for the next season. And there are different techniques for different plants. I have gone over some of these techniques in my previous videos as well. If you want me to do a dedicated video on saving seeds, let me know in the comments box below. But you can see these seeds are of really good quality, heirloom seeds that we are using generation after generation with some great results. And after you wash the seeds, this is how they look like. You can store them in plastic bags like these. And we're also saving seeds from some of our other vegetables like this ridge gourd here. And here's another tip. When you save seeds for hyacinth beans or similar plants, I usually add in some turmeric powder to prevent pests from attacking these seeds. They will stay fresh for a much longer time if you use this technique. And now let's move on to the harvest we made this month. Beginning with ash gourds. Ash gourds or winter melons are great harvests that you can do in your garden late summer. You can see the ash is still there on the ash gourd, which gives it the name ash gourd. And ash gourd or winter melons are extremely delicious. They are also very good for you. They have a lot of vitamins and minerals, and they taste so good. We love growing winter melon in our garden and will continue to do so in the next season as well. Chili peppers. Towards the end of summer, you can start harvesting all your chili peppers. This is the time the plant will slow down a little bit when the cooler weather sets in. But you can see all these cayenne peppers that we grew are now yielding very good quality peppers. And we will try and overwinter these pepper plants, these chili pepper plants. Some of these have been growing for a while now and they will easily overwinter in Southern California. You can see all these beautiful looking chili peppers. Some of them are green, some of them are red. Now some of you like to harvest these chilies when they are red, which is perfectly fine. We use a mix of green chilies as well as red chilies. So we're harvesting both of them. But you can see how prolific these chili plants have grown. They're producing really good looking chili peppers. And these are growing on our raised bed. We did have chili peppers growing in containers as well. But these ones on the raised beds have yielded the most amount of chili peppers that we're harvesting here. And you can look at our beautiful harvest of chili peppers here. Cilantro. Another cool season crop, but we grow cilantro almost year round because we use a lot of cilantro. These cilantro plants have been growing in our earth box, and I'll provide a link to this product in the video description and comments below. It's a self-watering container, very easy to use. And what I like about these earth boxes are that they're a perfect size for growing herbs like cilantro. And you can look at our harvest here, beautiful looking cilantro. Cucumbers. We had our Japanese cucumbers growing on the raised bed. You can see they are quite large cucumbers. And towards the end of the summer season, you can still harvest a lot of cucumbers before the cooler fall weather sets in. And you can look at all these cucumbers that we harvested, beautiful looking Japanese cucumbers. Dwarf copperleaf spinach. This is a very interesting and nutrient dense green that we grew in our garden. And it was time to harvest it from a container. So the way you harvest the dwarf copperleaf spinach is to just cut the stems, as you see here. They have a lot of stems and they will grow all over the place. I also like to grow this as a ground cover on my raised beds, which I will show you later. But you can look at our harvest here. We harvested all these leaves. And the difficult part was to separate all these individual leaves from the stems. But once you harvest all the leaves, you can get a substantial amount of leaves from just one plant, as you see here. So it took us quite a while to separate out the individual leaves. But once that was done, these are some really nutritious power greens, as you can see here. And they taste amazing too. So all in all, this was a great season to grow the dwarf copperleaf spinach. And you can see some more growing on our raised bed as a ground cover, and it's doing really well. Okra. In the Southern California weather, late summer is a great time to harvest okra as well. In fact, we did get a few days of very hot weather here. So the okras are growing really well. We are harvesting a lot of these okras, different varieties. We have the Cajun okra that you see here. Beautiful looking okra plant. And we also had the Nombo Giant as well as an Indian okra variety. You can see our harvest here, beautiful looking okra. And we were back in just a few days to harvest more. Okras must be harvested when they are tender. If you wait too long, they become fibrous and not so good to eat. So this was a great month to harvest a lot of okra from our raised beds. And you can look at one more harvest here, beautiful looking okras. Rich gourd, also called Chinese okra, is a very prolific plant, especially in the summer and the late summer season. It produces all these ridge gourds that you see here. And we love eating ridge gourds. These are amazing tasting vegetables. And the vines grow pretty large. So they have been growing on the trellis between our raised beds. You can see they look quite good. The plant is quite big. And they're yielding a lot of ridge gourds, as you see here. You can look at these ridge gourds. They look amazing. And we were back in a few days to harvest more ridge gourds that you see here. These are beautiful looking ridge gourds. And here is one more harvest. These ridge gourds are extremely prolific. And you can see they produce a lot of ridge gourds, especially if you give them quite a lot of space to grow. And here is one more harvest of ridge gourds. Snake gourds. Another very interesting vegetable, it's an acquired taste. If you like snake gourds, if you've eaten snake gourds, you'll love them. It's used in a lot of different types of cuisines. And similar to the ridge gourds, these were also growing on the trellis between our raised beds, which gave them ample space. Now, snake gourds are not as prolific as ridge gourds and bottle gourds, but we still got a lot of snake gourds from our garden this month. You can see some more snake gourds here. The snake gourds come in different colors. This is the light green variety. There is also a dark green variety. They taste very similar. And you can look at our harvest of these light green snake gourds here. Beautiful looking snake gourds. Taro roots. We were growing taro plants on our raised bed. And you can see the plants have grown quite large. And this is the time to harvest taro to get the roots. Late summer or fall is the best time to harvest your taro roots. And you can see all these taro tubers or roots that are on the bottom. And taro roots taste almost like potatoes. They are a nuttier and spicier version of potatoes, if I have to put it in one way. But they are amazing. They are very nutrition dense. They have a lot of good quality fiber and they are very delicious as well. And we already replanted a few taro plants when we did our last harvest. You might have seen that. So we will harvest all these taro roots and put the rest of the plants in the compost bin. But you can see how many roots a taro plant can produce. So this was growing on the raised bed for a few months now. Taro has a very long growing cycle, about 6 to 8 months. But it's really worth the wait because you get to harvest these really beautiful looking tubers from the plant. And you can replant some of these tubers or the plants and you will get more taro root for the next season. Now, taro roots are very nutritious. They're very nutrient dense, which is why they're very popular in some cuisines. And as I mentioned, they also taste amazing. We usually boil the taro roots, add some spices, and they're really amazing in taste. And you can plant taro in the spring and harvest them by fall. You can also do an additional planting in fall and then harvest them by the next spring. So they are very versatile plants that grow almost year-round in warmer climates. And here you can look at our harvest, beautiful looking taro roots. We will wash them and then store them for quite a few days. Ivy gourd. We had ivy gourds growing on our raised bed. These are the small ivy gourds. The smaller ivy gourds produce a lot of ivy gourds. They are smaller in size, but they are very productive. They are also an easier to grow plant. They grow easily in almost all conditions. And you can see some of the ones that have turned red are actually ripe. You need to harvest them before they turn ripe. Now, some of my friends have said that they actually like eating the ripe ivy gourds. I tried one and I wasn't a big fan of the taste. But let me know in the comments box below whether you like to eat ripe ivy gourds. And then we had the long ivy gourds growing on our ivy gourd plant in the ground. You can see it produced a lot of ivy gourds. The plant did not grow as big as I expected it to this year, but it's still growing okay and it's producing a lot of ivy gourds as you see here. Now the longer ivy gourds are a little difficult to grow and the taste is almost similar to the smaller ivy gourds. You can look at our ivy gourds harvest here. Beautiful looking ivy gourds, very fresh and delicious. Tomatoes. No garden harvest is complete without tomatoes in the summer. And in late summer, we got this burst of tomatoes on all our tomato plants, all looking really good. These are our single stem tomatoes on one raised bed, producing a lot of tomatoes. They need a little bit of pruning now, but you can look at all these tomatoes that they are producing. There are quite a lot of tomatoes on these plants. And growing tomatoes on a single stem has yielded a lot of tomatoes for me. And moving on to the tomatoes on the ladder trellis, you can see that there are still a lot of tomatoes here. The plants on the ladder trellis also grew well. They were just a little bit more unmanageable compared to the single stem tomatoes. And you can look at all our beautiful looking tomatoes here. And in just a few days, we came back and harvested more tomatoes. This is again on our raised bed on the ladder trellis. By this time, all the fig eater beetles have gone. So I haven't protected some of these tomatoes. You can see here beautiful looking tomatoes on these ladder trellis arches that we made. And here are some more tomatoes. And here is another tomato harvest here. Beautiful looking tomatoes for the late summer season. And we also had tomatoes growing in our container. You can see that there are still some tomatoes growing and ripening on the vine on the tomatoes in the container. And back to the raised beds, there are more tomatoes here. And you can see some of those volunteer Roma tomato plants on the bottom. But all in all, this was a great season for growing tomatoes. We harvested a lot of tomatoes this season. And there are still some tomatoes on the plant. So we'll see if they ripen on the vine because the temperatures are getting cooler now. So we'll see how it goes next month. And here is a look at one more harvest. And we were back in just a few more days to harvest more tomatoes. I think we harvested a lot of tomatoes this month. One of our peak months of harvesting tomatoes. Other than the previous month where we harvested a ton of tomatoes, this was also a very productive month for harvesting tomatoes. And you can see how we protected these tomatoes last month from the fig eater beetles. But now you can remove the cover, the protective cover, and then harvest the tomatoes. This is a very easy option to prevent your tomatoes being eaten by birds or by these beetles or even rodents if you have any in your garden. And here is one more harvest of beautiful looking tomatoes. Watermelons. We had watermelons growing along our apple tree in the container. And it was now about time to harvest these watermelons. You can see that the foliage is now drying out. And we had a few watermelons growing on just a few plants in our container. And you can look at our watermelon harvest here. Beautiful looking watermelons. And after we cut open the watermelon, you can see that they look amazing. And it also tasted very sweet and nice. And there we have it. Hit that like button if you liked this video. And let us know your feedback on what kind of videos you'd like to see in the future. If you're not already a subscriber, hit that subscribe button to get all future updates. We will continue to post some exciting content in the months ahead. We'll see you again soon. Happy gardening.